Good morning. Good morning. Time to go through another one of these videos, 30 reasons why following Jesus was the best decision I ever made. This is going to be a funny one, man. I met my brother-in-law's in Minneapolis, and I am actually outside of his house because our daughter's staying with us tonight too, Megan, and so there's somebody like in every room. And when I went upstairs, I thought I found a place, and their dog went ballistic. Their dog didn't have a clue who I was. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure something out. So I'm outside here, and there's one little light that's on, and I'm glad it was on already because I wouldn't have known where to turn it on. But I'm dedicated to this. I want people to know the 30 reasons why following Jesus is the best decision that I ever made. And I started out by talking about his presence and being able to experience his presence, which was unbelievable. I hope you go back and watch that. But that was such an experience for me. And his presence really did set me free. So I don't know how to make this video better. So it just looks like I'm out. I don't even know what it's going to look like. But hopefully you can stick with me here. Maybe I can get a little closer and it'll be better. I don't know. Well, anyhow, we're going to do this. So the last 2 days, I've been doing kind of a mini series within this series where I'm telling my testimony. When I gave my life to the Lord, if you go back to the first one, that's a bit of my testimony. And then the next 6 are going to be the 6 things that he set me free from. Freedom is huge. Freedom is one of the things that this country has touted itself on and been so proud of for 200 and whatever years now, 243. And so when I think of my personal freedoms, I'm no less proud of that. In fact, I want to go set off some fireworks, honestly. But the 2 things that I talked about the last 2 days were both alcohol related. And I would suggest yesterday's is a bit long. It's like a half hour long. The day before, maybe 15 minutes. But if you know somebody struggling with alcohol, have them watch those. Have them watch those. They're my personal story of how Jesus set me free from alcohol. But today I'm going to talk about the third one. And before I do, let me just give just a little bit of the background for those that maybe are watching this video as a first one. And that is on August 3rd, 1989 is when I gave my life to Jesus. So that was 30 years ago on August 3rd. And so that's when I started my 30-day thing that I'm doing. So on that day, the Lord appeared to me. And I say appeared to me, but he spoke into my spirit as clear as could be. And he told me he still had a plan for me. I was managing a bar in Inglewood, Colorado, and I was sliding a beer across the counter to a man named Mike, and he stopped me in my tracks and said, "You have so much more to offer him than this." And I was without question an alcoholic at that time. I was managing a bar, I was serving others who were alcoholics, and we were just getting drunk together all the time. And when he said that to me, I went back to my office, I bawled my eyes out. And I didn't know how to communicate with God. I really did not know how to pray. And I certainly wasn't going to try and do it in a bar. So I said, "God, if you can get me through this shift, I will drive to camp and I'll meet with you." Because I had met with him at camp. There I knew I could pray. Weird, right? So I kept hearing him say to me, not in an audible voice. I can't even explain how or what, but it was over and over and over. I just kept hearing, "I still have a plan for you. I still have a plan for you. I still have a plan for you." So I drove up to camp, and I remember getting there. I went through the service. I don't remember who the speaker was. I sat way in the back. It was a senior high camp, which was a miracle to begin with. As soon as I drove up and I got out of my truck, somebody called me by name. I hadn't been there in a few years, and someone remembered me and called me by name. I sat in the very back, and when he gave the altar call at the end of the service, I was the first one up there. And when I got up from that, I was dead to myself. I was completely dead to myself. I had surrendered my life over to God 100%. And when I got up from there, it's kind of funny, but I was the only one left in the chapel. The only one left in the chapel. That's how long I stayed there. I don't even know how long. But on the drive home is when I knew some things needed to change. Like I had surrendered myself, but what did that mean, right? It's one thing to say I surrender myself. It's another thing to actually put into action the things that you need to be surrendered. So there were 6 things that I surrendered over to God on that drive home. 2 of them I talked about the last 2 days. One was alcohol. The other was my job as a manager of a bar. Figured if I was going to follow him, I couldn't keep that job. But the third one was big, huge for me. It was music. I had to surrender my music to him. And I want you to think for a second about my job. My job was managing a bar. One of the things that I did within that I loved to do, was I would sneak in and I would be the DJ from time to time. I would play the music, I would pick the music. I loved to dance, and me and some friends did a lot of routines to dancing and stuff. So the music that we were listening to was bar music. Okay, it was club music, and it was garbage. I'm just going to call it like it is. It was absolute 100% garbage. There was cussing, okay, there was foul language, but the biggest thing that made it garbage was the things that were being sung about. It was all about partying and drinking and women, and usually it was degrading women or talking about doing things with women it was not good. I'm just telling you right now, it was absolutely not good. And I love what Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15:33. He says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good habits." Bad company corrupts good habits. The truth is, what you put in here is going to be what your life is going to look like. Now, not exactly, of course. And that whole line of, well, I just listen to the beat, is a bunch of garbage. That's a lie coming right out of your mouth. Right out of your mouth. It's a lie that is based in deception, because you're even deceived enough that you believe that all you listen to is the beat. And you know how I know that? Because I'm 53 years old, and if I pop into a department store and I hear a song that I haven't heard in 20 years that I knew back then, in fact, it wouldn't be 20 years, it'd be 30 years, because that's when I gave it up. 30 plus years ago, and I hear a song in a department store, I'll catch myself singing the words right there in the store. And you do the same thing. You do the same thing. So that it's garbage. It's a lie that we don't listen to the words. And I can tell you, God convicted me. Nobody had to tell me that my music was garbage. When I'm driving home from this mountaintop experience, I surrendered alcohol, I surrendered my job, and the third thing was I surrendered my music. I got home and I was a music buff. Like I was the guy that one of my jobs was stringing tennis rackets, and there'd be like 6 or 8 of us standing around stringing rackets at the same time. We'd have the old rock station on, and we would race to identify who it was. And I would win a majority of the time. I knew the music. I knew it inside and out. I owned the music. So when I got home, I had a ton of tapes, cassette tapes. Okay, this is 1989, and I had a ton of cassette tapes. I had some records too, but I didn't have a good record player, so I didn't have many of them, but I had a ton of tapes, and I went home and I busted them all. And I threw them in the garbage. And it was hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. Maybe even probably thousands, because they were about $10 a piece back then. probably thousands of dollars worth of music, and I trashed it right there. And I spent probably the next, I don't know how long, listening to like two tapes that I had. That was all I had. That was it. And other than that, I just didn't even listen to music. But I had one by Petra, and I had one by the Daniel Band, and I love the Daniel Band. They're awesome rock band, Christian rock band. But now, here's the interesting thing. God replaced that in my life in such a powerful way. I had a 5-year stretch when we lived in Omaha where he allowed me to be a Christian concert promoter. And I worked with over 100 bands in that 5-year stretch. Got to meet some of the absolute stars of Christian music. Probably my favorite band that I worked with. Well, I don't want to start naming favorites. I absolutely love Sanctus Real. I loved working with Skillet. I loved working with Toby Mac. I loved working with Casting Crowns was one of my favorite because I got to work with them before they were huge and after they were huge. And just so many that he allowed me to work with and get to know. And it was such a precious time in my life because he took something that was so precious to me that I surrendered over to him, and he took it to a whole new level in my life. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that. Guard what goes in here. Guard what goes in here. If you want to be a follower of Jesus that's making progress in your life, then guard what goes in here. And music is a huge part of that. And I'm going to give you a couple suggestions. If you are like, well, I don't even know any Christian music. I'm big into music too, but what do I do with this? What do I do with this love for music that I have? I'm going to tell you a couple suggestions of bands to listen to, and I could go on and on and on, but two of my absolute favorites right now, their latest albums are amazing. And that is, well, Skillet. I just did a brand new Skillet album. They're a little bit harder than what I typically listen to, but if you like hard rock, Skillet is amazing, and their new one is good. Okay, I've just listened to it once through, but it is good. But two bands that I would totally 100% highly recommend, and if you get their latest album, Toby Mac, Elements, and For King and Country, Burn the Ships. Those are my two recommendations right now. But hey, thanks for tuning in. Bridger, I see you on here, and Joe, great. Thank you for tuning in, and share this with someone that you think might need it. But if you have some music that you've given up from the past, or some music that you would say is your favorite now, that's Christian music, that's feeding your mind in ways that helps you follow Christ rather than helps you do other things, then put that in the comments. Put your favorite Christian band in the comments so that others can see that. But thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you again tomorrow with my fourth thing that I gave up. There were 6 total, so I'll see you tomorrow.